In the luxury vehicle space, I have a sliding scale with comfort on one side and performance on the opposite end. Mercedes-Benz has typically trended towards the comfort and luxury side, while BMW has gone the other direction and favored performance. Audi has sort of filled the middle ground between the two, delivering the best of both worlds. And this is a prime example. This is the Audi Q5, a compact luxury SUV that has historically been a solid choice in the class. Before we get into the good and the not so good parts of the Q5, do us a favor and hit like and subscribe below to get all of our latest content. Up front, the Q5 has a really strong presence with all of these beveled angles that play really well together. We have this massive grille with the somewhat traditional headlights flanking it. Then we also have these large inlets below that add to the sporty styling. Down the side we have some subtle curves that are accentuated by this sharp character crease that helps to break up some of the bodywork in the doors. Now in the back here you might notice that this Q5 looks a little different. That's because this is the Sportback model, which is their kind of coupe-like roofline that tapers down. Now, normally I'm not a fan of coupe-like SUVs and sedans. To me they seem a little weak back there, like a hyena with those short legs that always looks like it's scurrying away from something. Now, these tapering rooflines also tend to cut into cargo capacity and rear passenger space, and really, aren't those some of the main reasons you buy an SUV? The Q5 Sportback bothers me a lot less though. This little kick out here above the taillights gives it a stronger backside, and there are fewer sacrifices required for this particular SUV. But tell us what you think. Are you a fan of these coupe-like SUVs, or are you more old school? Let us know in the comments below. The Q5 is available with a choice of 3 engines. The base engine is called the 40 TFSI and gets a 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder that produces 201 horsepower and 236 pound-feet of torque. The mid-grade engine is called the 45 TFSI, and it's tweaked to make 261 horsepower and 273 pound-feet of torque. And it's the only engine that's offered with the Q5 Sportback. Now the regular Q5 is also eligible for the 55 TFSI, which was introduced last year. It's a plug-in hybrid that makes 362 horsepower and 369 pound-feet of torque. And you should be able to squeeze 23 miles of electric-only range out of it too. All Q5s come with a 7-speed dual-clutch automated transmission, and Audi's Quattro all-wheel drive is standard. But I'm not so sure that transmission is the right choice for this particular SUV, and we'll get into that next. Audi estimates the base engine will accelerate the Q5 to 60 miles an hour in 6.8 seconds, which is respectable for an entry-level model. The 45 TFSI that this has should get us there in 5.7 seconds, and the plug-in hybrid should get there in 5 seconds flat. Based on these specs, that should mean that the Q5 is fairly peppy, but that simply is not the case. When you step on the pedal, there is a very noticeable delay before anything happens. This is likely due to that automated dual clutch transmission. Now it feels like it's trying to engage the clutch in the smoothest way possible, but to me, it feels almost like a beginner driver learning how to drive a stick shift. The result is the Q5 feels kind of slow and unresponsive, almost like it's stuck in the mud for the first few feet. It really puts a damper on responsiveness, and it makes the Q5 feel a lot slower than it is. Once you're underway, it's really not that bad, but if you're passing slower traffic, you're still going to have to plan ahead because the transmission has to drop down a few gears. As far as braking goes, there's not much to report there, and that's a good thing. It just feels right for this car. Handling is pretty good, maybe not as athletic as the BMW X3, but you can still have a decent amount of fun. And even better, the suspension isn't overly stiff. Now, I do feel some jostling here and there, but the sharp impacts are rounded over pretty well. Overall, it's fun to drive-ish and comfortable-ish. So let's pull over and talk about the interior next. In terms of style, the Q5 really hasn't changed on the inside too much since it was redesigned in 2018, but I will say it's held up quite well. Materials quality is good for the luxury class, but let's face facts. With Hyundai, Kia, and Honda stepping up their game, the luxury materials aren't looking as luxury as they used to. As far as front seat comfort goes, well, they're shaped really well for all-day comfort, even though the padding is on the firm side. I've logged a lot of miles in this seat, and I have to say, I haven't had a lot of fatigue. Visibility is good for this class of SUV. This roof pillar here is contoured in a way where it's not really getting in the way in sharp left turns. And the view at the back is actually better than most other SUVs. I like the placement of the infotainment screen, and for me it's the right size. It's pretty quick to respond, but I will say in Apple CarPlay, I do have a few complaints. The buttons to switch between apps are just a little too small and a little too close together, but it's definitely not a deal breaker. When it comes to storage, you have enough, but it's a little odd. Right here we have this little shelf there that seems like it's the perfect place for a wireless phone charger, but no, the wireless phone charger is here, and it's a little tray here. You put your phone in here, and it blocks the cup holders, but it does slide backwards. It's a little odd and seems a little overcomplicated if you ask me. There is a bigger bin here for, let's say, smaller items, and a nice tray here. I'm not sure what you'd put there because a phone kind of flops around there. You do have moderately sized cup holders, and in this model, they're heated and cooled. Ooh. You do have a kind of a small shallow bin here, and that's mostly because of this sliding phone tray. And the door pockets are actually quite large and can hold those much bigger drink bottles. I've got plenty of room back here. I'm 5'10", sitting behind the driver's seat, which is set for me, and as you can see, I've got plenty of room for my knees, and there's a lot of room underneath the seat for my feet. Now, as expected, some of the materials quality back here isn't as good as the front. It's harder plastic for durability. Now, we also have these handy sunshades to keep your young ones from getting fried. We have our own climate control back here, heated outboard seats, and 2 USB chargers. Behind the rear seats, this Q5 Sportback can hold 24.7 cubic feet of cargo. The regular Q5 can hold 25.8 cubic feet. That difference is really only about the size of a few basketballs and not at all significant. That means you won't have to sacrifice much in the way of convenience for the sportier tail. The BMW X3 and Genesis GV70 both can carry about 4 cubic feet more, but the Porsche Macan maxes out at only 17.2 cubic feet. Starting prices for the 2023 Audi Q5 range from $45,000 for the base model to $68,000 for the plug-in hybrid in its top trim. The Sportback is only offered with a mid-range engine and costs a few $1,000s more, from $52,000 to around $60,000. Fuel economy estimates are 25 mpg for both the base and mid-grade engines, so I say go for the upgrade. I would assume the base engine also feels slower than this one. The plug-in hybrid might make sense for you if you have a shorter commute and regular access to chargers, because once you're off the battery, the combined city and highway estimates only come to 26 mpg. It would take a very long time for you to recoup the $10,000 or so it costs to upgrade from the mid-range engine. Now, if you're looking for a greener and more efficient alternative, I'd suggest Audi's own Q4 e-tron, all-electric model that can return up to 265 miles on a single charge. Compared to other gas-powered rivals, the Q5 is priced competitively. The BMW X3 40i xDrive is almost in lockstep when it comes to price. The Porsche Macan, however, costs thousands more. The Genesis GV70, well, that's the value leader in the class, giving you a lot of features for a lower cost. The BMW and Genesis are estimated at 1 mpg less than the Q5, while the Porsche drops by about 4 mpg. So what would you get if you were shopping in the small luxury SUV class? If you go for the Q5, would you go for the Sportback or perhaps the regular one, or maybe even the plug-in hybrid? Would you opt for the BMW, Porsche, or Genesis that don't suffer with some of the Q5's slow responses? Personally, I'd go for the BMW X3 because it's more fun to drive and it's still very comfortable. But let us know in the comments what you'd go for. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to hit like and subscribe below. We'll see you next time on the road.